The mountain didn't care about Elias Boone's peace. It never had. 3 days into his supply run, with his pack horse laboring through knee-deep drifts and the wind cutting through his wool coat like it was made of paper, Elias was already regretting the trip. March in the Rockies was a liar's month, promising spring, delivering winter's last cruel laugh. The trail to Shepherd's Creek had been passable when he'd set out. Now it was buried under a late-season storm that had no business being here. He was still 2 days from home, his real home, the cabin he'd built with his own hands in a valley so remote that even trappers called it God-forsaken. That was exactly why he'd chosen it. The horse stumbled. Elias cursed, pulling up short. Easy, Buck, easy. The animal's breath came in ragged clouds. They'd pushed too hard. The smart thing would be to make camp wait out the worst of it. But Elias Boone hadn't made smart decisions in a long time. Smart men didn't end up alone in the mountains with nothing but a horse and ghosts for company. He was about to dismount when he saw it. At first his mind tried to make sense of the shape. A broken tree. A rock formation. Anything but what it actually was. Then it moved. Elias's hand went to the rifle across his saddle before conscious thought caught up. 5 years in these mountains had taught him that anything out of place was a threat. Bandits worked these trails sometimes, especially in winter when desperate men did desperate things. They'd use a decoy, an injured traveler, a woman in distress, anything to draw a mark in close. But this, he urged Buck forward, slow, careful, his eyes scanning the ridge, the tree line, anywhere an ambush might be hiding. The figure was tied to a post, an actual post driven deep into the frozen ground at the edge of a rocky outcrop. Whoever had done this had taken their time. This wasn't a hasty execution. This was meant to be discovered. 20 yards out, Elias could see it was a woman. 10 yards, and he could see the blood. 5 yards, and he heard the sound that would change everything. A baby crying, not the healthy wail of a newborn announcing itself to the world. This was different, thinner, weaker, the sound of something barely holding on to life. Elias dismounted, rifle ready, eyes still searching the landscape. Empty. Just wind and snow and that terrible, persistent crying. The woman was unconscious. Or dead. Hard to tell. Her face was bruised, swollen beyond recognition. Her dress, what was left of it, was soaked through with blood and other fluids he didn't want to identify. Her wrists were bound to the post with rough hemp rope, tied so tight the flesh had split and bled. And at her feet, wrapped in what looked like a torn piece of blanket, was the baby. Elias knelt. The snow around them was pink with blood. Too much blood. He'd seen battlefield wounds that bled less. The baby's crying cut off, then started again, weaker. Christ. He wasn't a praying man. Hadn't been for years, but the word came out anyway, reflexive, useless. He checked the woman first. Pulse in her neck, faint but there. Her breathing was shallow, rapid. Shock, probably. Exposure. Blood loss. Take your pick. She wasn't dressed for this weather. Wasn't dressed for anything, really. Whoever had done this had stripped her down to almost nothing before tying her here to die. The baby cried again. Elias picked it up. The bundle was lighter than it should be. Through the filthy cloth, he could feel tiny limbs, cold as ice. A girl. Newborn, maybe a day old, maybe less. The umbilical cord had been cut, badly, and tied off with what looked like a piece of string. This woman had given birth out here, alone, in the snow. Then someone had tied her to a post and left them both to die. His mind was already working through scenarios. Bandits didn't do this. Bandits killed quick and moved on. This was personal. This was punishment, which meant whoever did it might still be watching. Elias stood, tucking the baby inside his coat against his chest. The crying stopped almost immediately. Warmth, finally. He scanned the ridge again. Nothing. But that didn't mean anything. He should leave. Right now. Mount up and ride like hell back toward Shepherd's Creek. Let someone else deal with this. Let the law handle it, if there was any law out here that gave a damn. The woman's eyes opened. Just a crack. Just enough to see him, to see the baby against his chest. Her lips moved. No sound came out, but he could read the shape of the word. Please. God damn it. Elias cut her loose with his knife, and the woman collapsed forward into the snow. He caught her, barely, and felt how cold she was, how close to gone. "Can you ride?" Stupid question. She could barely breathe. He laid her down, wrapped her in his bedroll, then secured the baby inside his coat with his belt. The child was quiet now, conserving energy or giving up. He didn't know which. Getting the woman onto Buck was a nightmare. She couldn't help, couldn't hold on. He had to tie her in place, lashing her to the saddle like cargo. The whole time, his back itched with the certainty that a rifle was aimed at him from somewhere in those trees. But no shot came. Maybe they'd already moved on. Maybe they thought their work was done. Or maybe they wanted someone to find her like this. Maybe that was part of the punishment too. Elias didn't care about the why. Not yet. Right now he cared about getting off this ridge before the storm got worse or the woman died. Whichever came first. He led Buck on foot, moving as fast as the snow allowed. Not toward Shepherd's Creek. That was too far. The woman wouldn't make it. The baby wouldn't make it. He turned north toward the one place he'd sworn he'd never take strangers. Home. The cabin appeared through the snow like a ghost, low, dark, hunched against the mountain like it was trying to disappear. Elias had built it that way on purpose. No smoke from the chimney unless absolutely necessary, no lights visible from the valley, nothing to draw attention. But now he needed heat. Needed it fast. He got the woman inside first, laying her on the floor near the cold fireplace. The baby he kept against his chest while he worked. Kindling, tinder, flint and steel. His hand shook, from cold, from adrenaline, from something else he didn't want to name. The fire caught, grew. Heat started to fill the small space. Only then did Elias unwrap the baby. She was blue. Not crying anymore. Not moving. No, come on. He rubbed her tiny chest, her arms, trying to force circulation back into those cold limbs. He'd seen this before in the war. Men pulled from frozen rivers, technically alive but losing the fight. You had to force the body to remember what living felt like. The baby gasped. A tiny, hitching sound. Then she cried. Weak, but real. That's it. That's it, kid. He wrapped her in his spare shirt, cleanest thing he had, and laid her in a basket near the fire. Not too close. Warmth, but not heat. Too fast could kill her just as dead as the cold. Then he turned to the woman. She was worse. So much worse. The bleeding hadn't stopped. Her dress was soaked through, and when he pulled it back to check the damage, he saw why. The birth had torn her. Badly. And whoever had tied her to that post hadn't bothered to help her deliver the afterbirth. It was still inside her, rotting, poisoning her blood. Elias had field surgery experience. Not much. Not enough. But more than nothing. He boiled water, found his cleanest cloth, whiskey for sterilization, and for him, because his hands were shaking again. You still with me? The woman's eyes opened, glassy, fevered. I'm going to help you, but it's going to hurt. Understand? She didn't respond. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she was already too far gone. He worked fast, tried to be gentle, failed. This kind of work didn't allow for gentle. She screamed once, a raw, broken sound that made him flinch. The baby started crying again. And Elias Boone, alone in his hidden cabin, with two strangers who were probably going to die anyway, wondered what the hell he'd gotten himself into. 3 days. That's how long it took before he knew she might actually survive. The fever broke on the second night. She'd been delirious, screaming words he couldn't understand, fighting him when he tried to give her water. He'd had to hold her down, force liquid past her cracked lips, hope she didn't choke. The baby was easier. Goat's milk, thinned with water, fed drop by drop from a clean cloth. It wasn't ideal, probably wasn't enough, but it was all he had. On the third morning, the woman opened her eyes and they were clear. Where am I? Her voice was destroyed, raw from screaming, from cold, from everything. Elias was at the table cleaning his rifle. Habit. Even here, especially here, he kept the weapon ready. Safe. For now. She tried to sit up. Failed. The baby? Alive. Sleeping. The woman turned her head, saw the basket by the fire, and something in her face crumpled. Relief. Grief. Both. They told me she was dead. After the birth, they said she didn't breathe. They lied. Silence. The fire crackled. Wind hammered at the cabin walls. "Who did this to you?" The woman didn't answer right away. She was staring at the ceiling, at the rough-hewn beams Elias had cut and placed himself 5 years ago. "My husband's family." "Why?" "Because I killed him." Elias stopped cleaning the rifle. The woman laughed, bitter, broken. "I didn't, but they think I did. Easier than believing he drank himself to death. Easier than admitting their golden son was a monster who beat his wife bloody every night and called it love." She turned to look at him then, really look at him. "I didn't kill him, but I'm glad he's dead." Elias had heard a lot of confessions in his life. Battlefield confessions from dying men, drunken confessions in frontier saloons, whispered confessions from people who needed to believe someone was listening. This one felt different. This one felt true. "What's your name?" "Mara. Mara Vale." She paused. "What's yours?" "Elias." "You got a last name, Elias?" "Not one that matters anymore." Mara nodded, like that made perfect sense. "Maybe it did. Why did you stop?" "What?" "On the ridge. Why did you stop? Smart men don't stop for strangers out here." Elias thought about lying. Thought about giving her some noble reason, some story about duty or honor or basic human decency. Instead, he told the truth. The baby was crying. Mara's eyes filled with tears. She didn't wipe them away. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We're not out of this. They'll come looking. I know. They'll kill you too, for helping me. Let them try." The words came out harder than he meant them, colder. Mara flinched slightly, then studied him with new eyes. "You're not just some mountain hermit, are you?" "I am now." "But you weren't always." Elias stood, set the rifle down, walked to the window. Through the warped glass, he could see snow still falling. The storm had lasted 4 days now. Another gift. It would cover their tracks, make it harder for anyone to follow. But it wouldn't last forever. Nothing did. "Get some rest," he said. "We'll talk more when you're stronger." "Elias, rest." He walked outside into the storm and stood there until the cold made his lungs ache and his face went numb. Behind him, through the cabin walls, he could hear the baby crying. He'd stopped searching for purpose a long time ago. Apparently purpose had found him anyway. What? Mara healed faster than he expected. Not fully, that would take weeks, maybe months, but enough to sit up, to eat solid food, to hold her daughter without help. She named the baby Leora. "It means my light," Mara explained, cradling the tiny girl against her chest. "In Hebrew. My mother used to tell me stories, before she died." Elias didn't ask about the mother. Didn't ask about a lot of things. Personal history was a luxury neither of them could afford right now. But Mara talked anyway. Maybe she needed to. Maybe silence had kept her prisoner for too long. "Thomas was charming," she said one evening, while Elias cooked a sparse dinner of salted pork and canned beans. "When we met, handsome, said all the right things. His family had land, money, respect. My father thought I was lucky." She laughed that bitter laugh again. "Lucky? How long were you married?" 3 years. 3 years of walking on eggshells, of hiding bruises, of making excuses when I couldn't come to town because my face was too swollen to explain away." The pork hissed in the pan. Elias didn't turn around. "His family knew?" "Knew. Didn't care. The Vale clan has rules. You don't question the men. You don't shame the family. You certainly don't leave." "But you did." "I tried. 6 months ago. Made it as far as Denver. He found me. Dragged me back. That's when it got worse." Mara shifted Leora to her other arm. The baby was sleeping, finally putting on weight. Still too small, but surviving. He started drinking more. Gambling. Losing money. Getting violent in new ways. Creative ways. Her voice dropped. "I prayed every night that he'd just finish it. Just kill me and be done." But he didn't. No, he fell off his horse drunk, broke his neck, quick, clean. The kind of mercy he never showed anyone else. Elias served the food. They ate in silence for a while. "They blamed you." "Of course they did. His mother started the rumors, said I must have driven him to drink, must have provoked him. Some even whispered I'd poisoned him, though the doctor said it was clearly an accident. Mara set down her fork. Then I realized I was pregnant. And they claimed the baby wasn't his. Thomas couldn't have children, something from childhood, mumps, the doctor said. Everyone knew. But everyone pretended not to know because admitting it meant admitting the Vale bloodline was ending. So when you turned up pregnant, I was a whore, a liar. Proof that I'd betrayed their precious son. Never mind that Thomas hadn't touched me in over a year. Never mind that his brother... She stopped, closed her eyes. Elias waited. His brother, Marcus. He came to the house one night when Thomas was passed out, said he was checking on me, making sure I was safe. Christ. I fought him, scratched his face bloody. He just laughed, said no one would believe me, said I should be grateful he was willing to give me what Thomas couldn't. The fire popped. Leora stirred but didn't wake. When I started showing, they held a family meeting, decided I'd shamed them enough. Marcus wanted to keep me locked up, hidden away. But their mother, Eleanor, she had a different idea. The post, Mara nodded. She said I needed to be made an example, that other women in the family needed to see what happened when you betrayed the Vale name. So they took me up to that ridge, made me walk the last mile even though I was in labor, tied me there, told me if the baby lived, they'd come back for it, raise it properly. If it died, well, that was judgment from above. They left you there to deliver alone. Eleanor stayed, watched. Didn't help, but watched. When Leora came out and started crying, Eleanor cut the cord with a dirty knife and wrapped her in that rag. Then she leaned close and whispered, "She's got Marcus's eyes. What a shame she won't live to see them open." Mara's voice cracked. She took the baby, walked away. I was screaming, bleeding, still tied to that goddamn post. I thought that was it. I thought I'd die there without even knowing if my daughter made it. But she came back. Hours later. Said the baby had died. Thrown it in a ravine, she said. Told me to make peace with judgment. Then she left me there. Again. To freeze or bleed out or both. Elias stood, walked to the window. Anger was rising in his chest like floodwater. Old anger, familiar anger, the kind that had nearly destroyed him once before. But she didn't throw the baby away. I don't know why. Maybe she couldn't do it. Maybe she thought leaving her next to me was crueler. Let me die, knowing my child died too. Mara's voice hardened. But Leora didn't die. And neither did I, because you stopped. How long were you there before I found you? I don't know. Time stopped meaning anything. 2 days, maybe? I kept passing out, waking up. The baby would cry, and I'd think I was hallucinating. Then she'd stop, and I'd think she was dead, over and over. She looked at him. So when I ask why you stopped, Elias, I'm not making conversation. I need to understand. Because men like you, men who hide in mountains and don't give last names, they don't stop for strangers. They especially don't stop for women tied to posts with dead babies, because that's bait. That's a trap. That's how you die. Elias turned to face her. I had a daughter once. The words came out before he could stop them. Mara went very still. Had? She was 4. Red hair. Laughed at everything. Loved horses. His throat tightened. There was a fever. Swept through our town. Took half the children under 10, including mine. I'm sorry. My wife blamed me. Said I should have gotten the doctor sooner. Should have done more. She was probably right. He paused. She left a year later, remarried, had more children. I heard she's happy now. And you came here, after a few other stops, none of them good. Elias looked at the baby in Mara's arms. When I heard Leora crying on that ridge, it sounded like Sarah, my daughter. Same pitch, same desperation. I know that's impossible. I know it was just my mind playing tricks, but I couldn't walk away, even if it was a trap, even if it killed me. Because you couldn't save Sarah. Because I didn't even try hard enough. The cabin fell quiet except for the fire and the wind. Mara stood slowly, carefully, walked over to where Elias stood by the window. You saved us. I delayed the inevitable. They're still coming. Then we fight. You can barely stand. I'll stand when I have to. Elias looked at her, this woman who'd been tortured, abandoned, left for dead, who'd given birth alone on a frozen ridge and survived. You're not a fighter, Mara. Neither were you, probably. Before whatever happened that sent you running to the mountains. She shifted Leora to one arm, used the other to touch his shoulder. But we learn, or we die. They won't just kill us quick, not after we've humiliated them by surviving. I know. It'll be ugly. I know. And the baby will live, because we'll make sure she does. Elias wanted to argue, wanted to explain all the ways this ended badly. But looking at Mara's face, bruised, determined, unbreakable despite everything, he realized argument was pointless. Some people bent under pressure, some people broke, and some people, the rare ones, they became steel. We need supplies, he said finally. Real medical supplies. More food. Ammunition. Is there a town nearby? Shepherd's Creek. 2 days' ride in good weather. And in this weather? 4, maybe 5. Can you make it alone? Elias hesitated. Leaving them here felt wrong, but so did staying while their supplies ran low. I'd have to. You're not strong enough, and someone needs to stay with Leora. How long would you be gone? Week, maybe more. Mara bit her lip, thinking. They might come while you're gone. Yes. Can you teach me to use the rifle? Elias almost laughed. Then he saw she was serious. You ever fired a gun before? No. It's not like in books. It's loud, kicks like a mule, and killing someone. He trailed off. It changes you. I'm already changed. Fair point. All right. Tomorrow, if you're strong enough, I'll teach you the basics. Thank you. Don't thank me for turning you into something you might hate. I already hate what they made me into. At least this way I have a choice in the matter. Teaching Mara to shoot was like teaching a newborn to run. Her hands shook. Her aim was terrible. The first time the rifle fired, the recoil knocked her flat on her ass. But she got up, tried again, failed again, got up again. By the end of the week, she could hit a tree trunk at 30 yards. Not great, but enough to make someone think twice about walking through that door uninvited. Elias left on a clear morning when the sun finally broke through the clouds and the snow started to melt. He packed light. Moved fast. Tried not to think about what might happen while he was gone. Shepherd's Creek was rougher than he remembered, more desperate. The winter had been hard on everyone, and it showed in the hollow eyes and drawn faces of people on the street. He bought what they needed, paid in silver, didn't make conversation. He was loading Buck when he overheard 2 men talking outside the general store. Vale family's offering a reward. For what? Runaway woman. Killed her husband, supposedly. Might be traveling with a baby. How much? $100. Elias kept loading, kept his face neutral. That's a lot of money. Yeah, well, Vales don't mess around. Want her found before spring thaw. They say where she might be headed? Just said north. Could be anywhere by now. If she's even alive. The men moved on. Elias finished loading and rode out. But he didn't head straight back to the cabin. Instead, he went into the saloon. Found the town's unofficial lawman, a tired-looking man named Barrett, who served as sheriff when he wasn't too drunk. I need to report something. Barrett looked up from his whiskey. Yeah? Found a woman and baby tied to a post up on Widow's Ridge. Week ago. Barely alive. Barrett's eyes narrowed. They with you now? Help them get to safety. But I thought you should know. Case someone comes asking questions. This woman got a name? Didn't say. But you helped her anyway. She was dying. What was I supposed to do? Barrett studied him. Elias knew the look. This was a man deciding whether to care or not. Vale family's been asking around, offering money. I heard. They say she killed her husband. They say a lot of things. Barrett took a long drink, set down his glass. I knew Thomas Vale. Mean drunk. Meaner sober. Beat a man near to death once for looking at him wrong. He paused. His family's worse. Powerful, though, connected. Make trouble for anyone who gets in their way. That's supposed to scare me? It's supposed to inform you. Barrett leaned back. You seem like a man who knows what he's doing, so I'm going to give you some advice. Whatever you got yourself into with that woman and her baby, get yourself out. Fast. Before the Vales decide you're part of the problem. And if I don't, then you better shoot straight and sleep light, because they won't stop, won't quit, won't forgive. Elias stood. Thanks for the warning. You gonna take it? No. Barrett almost smiled. Figured, try to stay alive anyway. Elias rode back toward the cabin thinking about choices, about roads taken and not taken, about how easy it would be to just keep riding, west maybe, or south. Somewhere warm. Somewhere the Vale family's reach didn't extend. Leave Mara and Leora to their fate. Save himself. Simple. He made it 5 miles before turning around. Orta. When he got back to the cabin, Mara was sitting on the porch with the rifle across her lap, and Leora sleeping in a sling against her chest. She didn't lower the weapon until he dismounted. Trouble? Not yet, but it's coming. He told her about the reward, about Barrett's warning, about the Vale family's determination. Mara listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, "You should leave." "What? This isn't your fight, Elias. I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I won't let you die for me." "Little late for that." "No, it's not. Ride out tonight. I'll say you were never here. That I made it to the cabin alone." "They won't believe that." "They might." "They won't." Elias started unloading Buck. "And I'm not leaving." "Why not?" Good question. He'd been asking himself the same thing for the last 5 miles. "Because I'm tired of running, tired of hiding, tired of letting fear make my decisions." He looked at her. "And because you're right, we learn or we die." "I'd rather learn." Mara's eyes welled up. She didn't cry, just nodded once. "Then we'd better get ready." They spent the next 2 weeks turning the cabin into a fortress, reinforced the door, cut firing holes in the walls, stockpiled ammunition and supplies. Elias taught Mara everything he knew about defense, about picking targets, about conserving ammunition, about not hesitating when it mattered. She learned fast, too fast maybe. There was something in her eyes now that hadn't been there before, something hard, something that understood violence wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. Leora grew stronger, started making sounds that weren't quite crying, almost smiles that might have been gas but felt like hope anyway. And every day the snow melted a little more. Every day the mountain paths became a little more passable. Every day they waited. Until finally, on a morning when spring felt almost real, Mara said the words they'd both been dreading. "They're here." Elias grabbed his rifle, moved to the window. 3 riders. Coming up the trail. Not hiding. Not rushing. Just coming. "You ready?" Mara checked her weapon, chambered around. "No." "Me neither." The rider stopped 50 yards out, close enough to talk, far enough to scatter if shooting started. One of them called out, "Mara Vale, we've come to bring you home." Mara's hands tightened on the rifle. Elias stepped onto the porch, weapon visible but not raised. "She is home." The riders looked at each other. Then the speaker, a big man with a thick beard, laughed. "You must be the mountain man who's been hiding our property." "She's not property. The law says different. Woman married into the Vale family belongs to the Vale family, even if her husband's dead." "Your law, maybe, not mine." The bearded man's smile faded. "We don't want trouble, friend. Just hand her over. You can keep the bastard child if you want. We don't need it." Behind Elias, he heard Mara chamber another round. "Right away," Elias said, "while you still can." "That a threat?" "It's advice." The bearded man spat. "You're making a mistake. Won't be my first." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the riders turned and rode back down the mountain. Mara lowered her rifle. "They'll be back." "I know." "With more men." "Probably." "And we'll fight them?" Elias looked at her. At the cabin behind them. At Leora sleeping inside, unaware that her whole existence was a death sentence to some people. "Yeah," he said. "We'll fight them." Mara nodded, and somewhere in the distance a hawk cried out. The mountain, as always, didn't care. But the people living on it? They were done running. The riders came back 3 days later. Not 3 this time, 7. Elias watched them through the scope of his rifle, counting heads, cataloging weapons. They'd brought serious hardware, repeating rifles, shotguns. One man had what looked like a Sharp's buffalo gun, the kind that could punch through the cabin wall like it was paper. 7, he said quietly. Mara was at the other window, Leora strapped to her chest in the sling they'd fashioned from an old shirt. The baby was mercifully quiet, full of goat's milk and sleeping the deep sleep of the very young. Can we hold them? Depends on how smart they are. And if they're smart, then we're in trouble. The riders stopped at the same spot as before, 50 yards out, just beyond easy rifle range, but close enough to make their point. The bearded man wasn't with them this time. Instead, a woman sat at the front of the group. Even from this distance, Elias could see the resemblance to Mara, the same sharp cheekbones, the same dark eyes. But where Mara's face held pain and determination, this woman's face was carved from ice. "That's Eleanor," Mara whispered. "Thomas's mother." "The one who left you on the ridge?" "Yes." Eleanor's voice carried across the space between them, clear and cold as mountain water. "Mara, we've come to settle this properly. You and the child. Come out now and we'll make it quick. You have my word." Mara laughed, short, bitter. "Your word isn't worth the air it wastes." Eleanor's expression didn't change. "Still defiant, even now. Your mother raised you poorly." "My mother raised me to survive. Seems like she did a better job than you did with Thomas." That landed. Elias saw Eleanor's jaw tighten. "My son's death is on your hands, girl, and you'll answer for it, one way or another. Your son died drunk and stupid. Same way he lived." One of the riders, younger, with Thomas's same weak chin, urged his horse forward. Marcus. Had to be. "Shut your mouth, whore. You don't get to speak about him." "Why not? You didn't mind speaking to me, or doing other things." "Remember, Marcus, that night you came to the house?" Marcus's face went red. "That's a lie." "Is it? Then why does Leora have your eyes?" The silence that followed was absolute. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Eleanor turned in her saddle to look at Marcus. Her face was still ice, but something moved behind her eyes. Something dangerous. "Marcus, is this true?" "She's lying. She's a liar and Is it true?" Marcus swallowed. "Mother, I can explain." Eleanor's hand moved faster than Elias expected. The crack of her palm against Marcus's face echoed across the clearing. "You stupid boy! You've shamed us all." "But, Mother—" "Silence." Eleanor turned back to the cabin. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, still cold, but now there was something else underneath, something that might have been fury. "The child lives?" Mara shifted so Leora was visible in the window. "She lives." "Let me see her face." "No." "I said let me see her." "And I said no. You wanted her dead. You don't get to look at her now." Eleanor sat very still on her horse. The other riders were watching her, waiting for orders. Elias could feel the tension building like pressure before a storm. "Marcus," Eleanor said quietly, "is the child yours?" I don't know. Maybe." She forced herself on me. Another slap, harder this time. Harder. "Don't insult me with lies. I know what you are. What you've always been." Eleanor's voice dropped even lower. "A weak, grasping thing, just like your brother." "Mother, please, get out of my sight." "But now!" Marcus rode back, his face burning red with shame and anger. Eleanor looked at the cabin again, at Mara, at the baby. "So, my son's death produced something after all. A veil heir." "She's not a veil," Mara said. "She's mine." "Blood says different." "Blood doesn't mean anything. Blood means everything." Eleanor paused. "Here's what's going to happen. You'll give us the child. We'll raise her properly, as a veil, as she deserves. And in exchange, we'll let you live. You can go wherever you want, start over. We'll even give you money." Mara's laugh was sharp enough to cut. "You think I'd give you my daughter after what you did to me? After you left us both to die?" "That was before I knew she was blood. Real blood. Not some bastard from a wandering peddler." Eleanor's voice hardened. "This is mercy, girl. More than you deserve. Take it. Go to hell." "Wrong answer." Eleanor raised her hand. The riders raised their weapons. Elias fired. Not to kill. Not yet. The shot hit the ground between Eleanor's horse and the nearest rider. The animals spooked, rearing and dancing sideways. "Next one won't miss," Elias called out. Eleanor got her horse under control. Looked at the cabin with new interest. "The mountain man. Didn't get your name last time." "Didn't give it." You're making a mistake protecting her. This is family business, veil business. Doesn't concern you. She's in my house. That makes it my business. House? Eleanor looked at the cabin with open contempt. That hovel? You call that a house? It's more home than anything you people ever gave her. Eleanor smiled. It wasn't pleasant. You're brave. Stupid, but brave. I can respect that. She paused. But bravery won't save you when we come back, and we will come back. With more men, more guns. We'll burn that hovel to the ground with you inside it if we have to. You're welcome to try. Oh, we will. But first, let me make you an offer. Same as I made the girl. Walk away, now. Leave her and the child. We'll let you live. Even pay you for your trouble. Not interested. Why? She's nothing to you. The child's nothing to you. Why die for them? Elias thought about Sarah, about his wife, about all the ways he'd failed people who mattered. Because someone should. Eleanor studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. I see. You're one of those. The broken ones. Looking for redemption. Her smile widened. Let me save you some time. There is no redemption. Not for men like you. Whatever you did, whatever you're running from, it's still there, still waiting. Dying here won't change that. Maybe not. But it won't make it worse either. Eleanor's smile faded. She turned her horse. 3 days? That's how long you have. Then we come back and end this. The riders left. Slow, deliberate. Making sure Elias and Mara understood this wasn't retreat, it was preparation. When they were gone, Mara lowered her rifle. Her hands were shaking. 3 days. Yeah. What do we do? Elias moved away from the window, started checking ammunition, counting rounds, running numbers that didn't add up to anything good. We have 2 choices, run or fight. Where would we run to? Anywhere, everywhere. Keep moving, change names, hope they eventually give up. They won't. I know. Mara sat down heavily. Leora stirred against her chest, making small sounds. So we fight. 7 armed men, probably more when they come back, against 2 people, one of whom barely knows which end of the rifle to point. Elias shook his head. It's not a fight. It's suicide. Then what? You want me to give them Leora? Let them raise her to be like them? No, hell no. Then what are you saying? Elias was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. There might be another way. What way? We go to the law. Real law. Not Barrett. He's useless. But the county seat. 3 days' ride from here. We file charges, tell them everything, make it public. You think they'll care? You think the law will protect us against the veils? Maybe not. But it's harder to kill someone when everyone's watching, when there's a record, when questions will be asked. Mara looked skeptical. You don't really believe that. No, but it might buy us time, might make them think twice. Or it might make them angrier, more determined. That's possible too. Leora started crying, full volume now, hungry and indignant. Mara unbuttoned her shirt to nurse. The baby latched on immediately, greedy. I'm so tired, Mara said quietly. Tired of running, tired of being afraid, tired of people trying to take everything from me. I know. Do you? Do you really? She looked up at him. You chose this life, this isolation. I didn't. I tried to be good, tried to do everything right, and it still went to hell. I'm not saying I understand. Then don't pretend to. Don't stand there and act like you know what this feels like. Her voice cracked. I just want to live. Want my daughter to live. Want to wake up one morning without wondering if today's the day someone kills us. Is that too much to ask? Elias knelt down in front of her, close enough to see the tears on her face, the exhaustion in her eyes. No, it's not too much, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you get it. Why? Eleanor was right. This isn't your fight. Maybe it should have been someone's fight a long time ago, before Thomas beat you bloody, before Marcus raped you, before Eleanor left you to die. He paused. I can't fix the past. Can't give you back what was taken. But I can stand here now and say enough. No more. They don't get to do this anymore. Mara wiped her eyes with her free hand. You're going to get yourself killed. Probably. And you're okay with that? I've been dead for 5 years. At least this way it means something. Leora finished nursing and fell back asleep, milk-drunk and content. Mara looked down at her daughter. At the tiny face, the small hands curled into fists. Okay. Okay, what? We'll try it your way. Go to the law, make noise, see if anyone actually gives a damn. She looked at him. But if it doesn't work, if we're just making ourselves easier targets, then we run. Agreed? Agreed. They left before dawn the next morning, packed everything they couldn't afford to lose, left the cabin looking lived in but empty. Elias led, with Mara and Leora following on the pack horse. They moved fast, stuck to game trails, avoided the main paths. By noon of the first day, Elias knew they were being followed. He didn't say anything to Mara, didn't want to spook her, but he kept checking their back trail, kept his rifle ready. Late afternoon, he called a halt in a narrow defile between two ridges. We're not alone. Mara went pale. How many? 2, maybe 3? Staying back, watching? What do we do? Keep moving, but carefully. If they wanted us dead, they'd have tried already. They're just tracking us, reporting back, probably. To Eleanor? Most likely. They rode until dark, then made camp in a shallow cave Elias knew from his trapping days. No fire. Cold food. Leora fussed but didn't scream. Elias took first watch, sat at the cave mouth with his rifle across his knees and watched the night. Around midnight, Mara woke up, came to sit beside him. Can't sleep? Keep thinking about what Eleanor said, about the child being veil blood, about having a right to her. She doesn't have any rights. She gave those up when she left you to die. Maybe, but the law might see it different. Grandfather's rights, family claims. I don't know how these things work. We'll figure it out. Will we? Mara pulled her coat tighter. What if they're right? What if I'm being selfish keeping Leora from her family? That family tried to kill her. Eleanor didn't know she was veil blood then. That's supposed to make it better? No, but it changes things, doesn't it? Elias looked at her. Are you having second thoughts? I don't know, maybe. She trailed off. What kind of life can I give her? Running, hiding, always looking over our shoulder. Is that better than growing up with money, education, opportunity? With people who left her mother to freeze to death? Yeah, I'd say it is. You didn't see how they lived, the house, the land. Leora could have all of that. At what cost? Maybe it's a cost worth paying. Elias turned to face her fully. You don't believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. I'm 23 years old and I feel ancient, used up. What do I have to offer a child? Poverty? Fear? Love. Protection. Truth. Pretty words. True words. Mara was quiet. In the darkness of the cave, Leora made small sleeping sounds. My mother used to tell me stories, Mara said finally, about her grandmother, who came over from the old country with nothing, no money, no English, no husband. He died on the crossing, just herself and 2 babies. She paused. Everyone said she should give the children to the church, to families who could care for them properly. She refused, worked herself to the bone, took jobs no one else would do, raised those babies in a one-room shack that flooded every spring. What happened to them? They lived, survived. One became a teacher, the other a doctor. Neither of them perfect, neither of them rich, but free. Their own people. Mara looked at Elias. My mother used to say that freedom's the only inheritance worth giving. Everything else is just weight. Your mother sounds smart. She was. Until my father drank her to death. Mara's voice hardened. Just like Thomas tried to do to me. But didn't. No, he didn't. She stood up. I'm not giving Leora to them. Not now. Not ever. I just needed to say it out loud. Hear how stupid it sounded. It didn't sound stupid. It sounded scared. Same thing sometimes. Elias smiled. Yeah, sometimes it is. They reached the county seat late on the 3rd day. A town called Silver Ridge, built around mining money that had mostly dried up. What was left was a collection of tired buildings and tired people trying to pretend prosperity was just around the corner. The sheriff's office was a small wooden structure that leaned slightly to the left, like it was trying to fall down but couldn't quite manage it. Inside, a man in his 50s sat at a desk covered in paperwork. He looked up when they entered, his eyes taking in Elias's trail dust, Mara's exhaustion, the baby in her arms. "Help you?" "Need to file charges," Elias said. "Against who?" "The Vale family, attempted murder, kidnapping, assault." The sheriff's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. "That's a serious accusation." "It's the truth." "Got evidence?" Mara stepped forward, unwrapped Leora enough to show the baby's face, then pulled down her collar to show the scarring on her wrist from the ropes. "They tied me to a post on Widow's Ridge, left me to die after childbirth. This man found me and saved our lives." The sheriff looked at the scars, at the baby, at Mara's face. "Why?" "Because I married into the family and my husband died. They decided I was responsible and sentenced me without trial." "Thomas Vale. I heard about that. Heard he fell off his horse drunk." "He did. But his family thinks you had something to do with it." "His family thinks a lot of things, most of them wrong." The sheriff leaned back in his chair. It creaked ominously. "The Vales are prominent people. Got land, money, connections all the way to the territorial governor. That's supposed to mean they can commit murder? It means accusations against them need to be airtight, beyond dispute. Otherwise, it's just your word against theirs. I have scars, which you could have gotten anywhere, doing anything." The sheriff's voice wasn't unkind, just tired. "I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying this is complicated." "Complicated?" Mara's voice went flat. "Is that what we call it when powerful people try to kill the poor ones?" "Ma'am, they tied me to a post in the snow, after I gave birth, alone. They took my baby and told me she was dead. Then they left us both to freeze." Mara's voice shook. "What part of that is complicated?" The sheriff sighed. "The part where I have to prove it, where I have to get witnesses, where I have to go up against a family that can bury me in legal fees and political pressure before I even get started. So you won't help us." "I didn't say that." "Then what are you saying?" The sheriff stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street. "I'm saying I need more than scars in a story. I need witnesses. I need evidence. I need something concrete." "The midwife," Mara started. "Was there a midwife?" "No, but Eleanor Vale was there. She watched me give birth. She cut the cord." "And you think she's going to testify against herself?" "Someone must have seen something. The men who carried me up there. The ones who tied the ropes. Family men? Vale employees? Think they're going to speak against the people who pay them?" The sheriff shook his head. "I want to help you. I do. But I need to be smart about this. Rushing in without preparation just gets us all hurt." Elias spoke for the first time since they'd started. "What are you suggesting?" The sheriff turned to look at him. "You military?" "Was. Long time ago." "Thought so. Got that look." He paused. "Here's what I can do. I can open an investigation, ask questions, poke around, make it known that there's official interest in this matter. That might make the Vales think twice before doing anything precipitous." "Might? It's the best I can offer right now." "And if they come after us anyway?" "Then you defend yourselves, and I'll make sure everyone knows they struck first." Mara laughed bitterly. "So we're bait. You're citizens under my protection. That's not the same thing." "Feels like it." The sheriff's jaw tightened. "I understand your frustration, but the law doesn't work on feelings. It works on evidence, on process. Give me time to build a case." "How much time?" 2 weeks. Maybe 3. We might not have 3 weeks. Then you need to stay somewhere safe, somewhere public, where there are witnesses if something happens." "Where?" Elias asked. "Boarding house on Main Street. Mrs. Chen runs it. Good woman. Doesn't take nonsense from anyone." The sheriff pulled out a piece of paper, scribbled something on it. "Give her this. Tell her I sent you. She'll give you a room. Cheap rate." Mara took the paper. "And if the Vales show up?" "Then you scream bloody murder and half the town will hear it. They can't make you disappear if everyone knows you're there." It wasn't much, but it was something. They left the sheriff's office as the sun was setting, painting the buildings in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. Mrs. Chen's boarding house was exactly what it sounded like, a 3-story building that had seen better days but was clean and solid. Mrs. Chen herself was a tiny Chinese woman with iron gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She read the sheriff's note, looked at Mara and the baby, then at Elias. "You the father?" "No, ma'am." "But you're protecting them." "Yes, ma'am." "Why?" "Because someone needs to." Mrs. Chen studied him for another moment, then nodded. "Rooms $3 a week, meals included, no drinking, no fighting, no men in the ladies' room after dark." "Understood." "You break my rules, you're out. Don't care what the sheriff says." "We won't break them." "Good." She handed Elias a key. "Third floor, end of the hall, baths on the second floor, breakfast at 6. Don't be late." The room was small but clean. 2 narrow beds, a washstand, a window that looked out over the street. After weeks in the cabin, it felt like luxury. Mara laid Leora on one of the beds, changed her diaper, fed her. The baby was fussy, unsettled by the new environment. "She knows something's wrong," Mara said quietly. "She's just tired. We all are." "No, babies know. They sense things." She rocked Leora gently. "My mother used to say babies can feel danger before adults can. Something about not being taught to ignore their instincts yet." "Your mother said a lot of smart things." "She did." Mara got Leora settled, finally asleep. Then she turned to Elias. "Thank you for pushing this, for making me try." "Don't thank me yet. We don't know if it'll work. But we're trying. That's more than I had yesterday." There was a knock at the door. Elias's hand went to his gun. "Mr. Boone?" "It's Mrs. Chen." He opened the door. Mrs. Chen stood there with a tray, bread, cheese, hot tea. "Thought you might be hungry. Missed dinner." "Thank you." She didn't leave, just stood there looking past him at Mara and the baby. "Sheriff told me about your situation, about the Vale family." "Did he?" "I know them. Eleanor Vale specifically. She comes to town sometimes, shopping, church meetings, acts like she owns the place." "She probably thinks she does." "Maybe. But this town's got a longer memory than she thinks." Mrs. Chen's expression hardened. Her husband, Jeremiah Vale, he killed a Chinese miner 20 years ago, said the man stole from him. Never went to trial, never faced justice. The man's family was run out of town. Elias took the tray. "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be careful. The Vales don't forget insults, and they don't forgive defiance." She paused. "But they're not invincible. They bleed like everyone else." With that, she left. Elias closed the door, set down the tray. "What do you think she meant by that?" Mara asked. "I think she meant exactly what she said." They ate in silence. The bread was good, fresh. The tea was hot and strong. Outside, the town settled into evening. Voices from the street, a piano playing somewhere. Normal sounds, safe sounds. But Elias couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing in the eye of a storm, that the quiet was temporary, that somewhere out there, Eleanor Vale was planning her next move. And when it came, it wouldn't be subtle. It would be final. The Vales arrived on the 5th day. Not Eleanor this time, just Marcus and 2 men Elias didn't recognize. They rode into Silver Ridge mid-morning, when the streets were busy with merchants and miners and people going about their ordinary lives. Elias saw them from the window of Mrs. Chen's boarding house. He was on his second cup of coffee, watching the street like he'd been doing every morning since they arrived. Mara was downstairs helping Mrs. Chen with breakfast dishes, her way of paying back the woman's kindness since money was running thin. Marcus dismounted in front of the general store, stretched like he owned the whole damn town. The 2 men with him stayed mounted, scanning the street with the casual awareness of people used to trouble. Elias went downstairs, found Mara in the kitchen, Leora strapped to her back while she scrubbed a pot. "They're here." The pot slipped from her hands, clattered in the sink. Mrs. Chen looked up from the stove. "How many?" "3. Marcus Vale and 2 others." "Armed?" "Yes." Mrs. Chen wiped her hands on her apron. "Stay inside. Let me handle this." "Mrs. Chen, I said stay inside. This is my house, my town. They don't get to walk in here and terrorize my guests." She walked out before either of them could argue. Elias moved to the front parlor window, watched as Mrs. Chen stepped onto the porch, arms crossed, looking about as movable as a mountain. Marcus saw her, smiled that same weak smile Thomas probably used to wear. "Morning, Mrs. Chen. Beautiful day." "State your business, Mr. Vale." "Just visiting. Heard there might be some friends of my family staying here." "You heard wrong. Now I doubt that. Small town like this, word travels, woman with a baby, mountain man playing protector. Ring any bells?" "My guests are none of your concern." Marcus's smile widened. "See, that's where you're wrong. The woman? She's family, Vale family. And the baby? That's my niece. We've come to take them home where they belong." The woman says different. The woman's confused, traumatized, not thinking clearly. "We just want to help her." "By tying her to a post in the snow." Marcus's smile flickered. "I don't know what lies she's been telling, but sheriff's investigating. Official investigation. You want to see them, you go through proper channels. Sheriff Barrett doesn't have jurisdiction here." "Not Barrett, Sheriff Wolcott, this county, and he's very interested in your family's activities." That landed. Marcus's face hardened. "You're making a mistake, old woman. I've made plenty. This isn't one of them. My mother won't forget this." "Your mother can take her grievances up with the law. Now get off my porch." Marcus looked past Mrs. Chen toward the window where Elias stood. Their eyes met. Marcus nodded slowly like he was filing something away for later. Then he mounted his horse and rode off, the two men following. Mrs. Chen came back inside. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her face was stone. "That won't be the end of it." "I know," Elias said. "They'll try something else, something we won't see coming." "Probably." Mrs. Chen looked at Mara, who'd come into the parlor with Leora fussing against her shoulder. "You need to be smart now. No going out alone. No wandering. Stay where people can see you." "For how long?" "Until the sheriff does his job. Or until those bastards give up." She paused. "Whichever comes first." But the Vales didn't give up. They did something smarter. They started a whisper campaign. Within 2 days, half the town was talking about the murderess staying at Mrs. Chen's place, the woman who killed her husband and ran off with another man, the one who was probably lying about the baby's father to cover her sins. Elias heard it at the general store when he went to buy supplies. 2 women talking by the fabric, voices low but meant to be heard. "Heard she poisoned him, Thomas Vale. Made it look like an accident. I heard she was carrying on with that mountain man for months. Poor Thomas probably found out. Such a shame. The Vales are good people, church-going people." Elias paid for his supplies and left. Didn't say anything. What was the point? You couldn't fight rumors with truth. Rumors move faster, stuck harder. But it got worse. The next day, the territorial newspaper ran a story. Small piece on page 3, but damaging enough. Local woman sought by Vale family after husband's suspicious death. Claims of abuse called into question by family members. The article was careful. Never directly accused Mara of murder. Just asked questions, raised doubts. Mentioned that the Vale family was deeply concerned about the welfare of the child. Suggested that perhaps authorities should investigate the woman's claims more thoroughly before allowing her to keep custody. Mara read it 3 times. Each time her face got paler. "They're going to take her." "No, they're not." "You read this. They're making me look like a killer, a liar. No court will side with me now. The sheriff said he's investigating, and the sheriff's one man. The Vales have money, lawyers, newspapers." She crumpled the paper in her fists. "I can't fight this. I don't know how." Elias took the paper from her, smoothed it out, read it again, slower this time. "This was written by someone who never talked to you, never saw your scars, never asked your side." "So? So it's not news. It's a bought opinion, and people know the difference, eventually. Eventually might be too late." She wasn't wrong. That afternoon, Sheriff Wolcott came to the boarding house. He looked tired, older than he had 5 days ago. "We need to talk." They sat in the parlor. Mrs. Chen brought coffee, then stationed herself in the doorway like a guard. "I've been asking questions," Wolcott said. "Talking to people, trying to build your case. And I'm hitting walls. Everyone who might have seen something works for the Vales. Everyone who might testify is scared. The doctor who examined Thomas's body suddenly can't remember details. Says his notes were lost in a fire last year." "Convenient," Elias said. "Very." Wolcott rubbed his face. "I'm not giving up, but I need you to understand what we're up against. The Vales aren't just rich, they're connected. Territorial judge used to work for old Jeremiah Vale. County prosecutor? His sister married into the family. Even the newspaper editor owes them money. So we're screwed. I didn't say that. I said it's harder than I thought. Wolcott looked at Mara. I believe you, for what that's worth. But belief doesn't hold up in court. Evidence does. And right now, I don't have enough. What would be enough? Mara asked quietly. A witness. Someone who was there, someone willing to testify about what really happened. Everyone who was there works for them. I know. Wolcott set down his coffee cup. There might be another option. What? Leave. Both of you. Take the baby and go somewhere the Vales can't reach. California maybe, or Oregon. Somewhere you can start fresh. Mara laughed. Sharp. Painful. Run. Again. Just keep running forever. It's not ideal. It's giving up. It's surviving. What's the difference? Mara stood up, started pacing. Leora was asleep in a basket nearby, oblivious. I'm tired of surviving, tired of letting them win. They took everything from me. My husband, terrible as he was, my home, my dignity, my safety. And now you want me to let them take my peace too? My ability to ever feel secure anywhere? I want you alive, Wolcott said quietly. You and that baby, that's all. Alive isn't the same as living. Wolcott didn't have an answer for that. After he left, Mara sat in the parlor for a long time, staring at nothing. Elias sat with her, didn't try to fix it, didn't offer empty comfort. Finally, she spoke. Tell me about your daughter. Elias looked at her, surprised. Why? Because you mentioned her once and never again. Because I think you understand this better than you're letting on. This feeling of being trapped, of watching something precious slip away and not being able to stop it. Elias was quiet for a long time. Her name was Sarah. She was 4 when she died. Red hair like her mother, smile that could light up a room. He paused. The fever came in summer, hit fast. Half the kids in town got it. Most recovered, some didn't. Sarah didn't. No, she fought though. For 3 days she fought. I sat by her bed the whole time, read her stories, sang songs I barely remembered from my own childhood, promised her everything would be fine. But it wasn't. No, she died on a Tuesday morning, early. Sun was just coming up. My wife was sleeping. She'd been up all night. It was just me and Sarah. She opened her eyes, looked at me, and said, Papa, I'm tired. I told her to rest. She closed her eyes. And that was it. Mara's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. My wife blamed me. Said I should have gotten the doctor sooner. Should have paid for the better medicine. Should have done something. Anything different. She was probably right. You can't know that. Can't I? I was so sure I had time, so sure she'd pull through like the other kids. And while I was being sure, my daughter died. That's not the same as not trying. Isn't it? Elias looked at her. I tell myself I did everything I could, but I wonder. Late at night, when I can't sleep, I wonder if I gave up too easy. If I accepted her death because fighting was too hard. Is that why you're here? Why you're helping us? Trying to make up for Sarah? Maybe. Probably. I don't know. He leaned back. All I know is when I heard Leora crying on that ridge, I couldn't walk away. Some part of me that's been dead for 5 years woke up and said, not again. Not this time. Even if it kills you. Even then, Mara wiped her eyes. We're a pair, aren't we? 2 broken people trying to save one tiny life. Yeah, we are. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the town in gold and shadow. The next morning brought new trouble. Elias was shaving in the washroom when he heard shouting from downstairs. He grabbed his gun and ran. Mrs. Chen was at the front door, blocking it with her body. Outside, a man in a suit stood with 2 deputies. I have a court order, the man was saying. He had the nasal voice of someone who'd never been punched in the face, but probably deserved it. You need to let us in. Let me see it. The man handed over a piece of paper. Mrs. Chen read it. Her expression darkened. This is garbage. It's a legal document signed by Judge Morrison. Pending investigation of Miss Vale's fitness as a mother, the child is to be placed in the temporary custody of the Vale family. Her name is Mara, and that's her daughter. The court says different. Now step aside or I'll have the deputies move you. Elias came down the stairs, gun visible, but not pointed. The man in the suit saw him and paled slightly. You can't threaten a court officer. Not threatening, just standing here. The law seems to work real well for people with money. Funny how that goes. One of the deputies, younger and nervous, spoke up. Look, we don't want trouble. We're just following orders. Orders from who? The judge who used to work for the Vales? That who's giving orders now? The deputy flushed. Judge Morrison is a respected tout. Judge Morrison is bought and paid for. Everyone knows it. You're interfering with... Where's Sheriff Wolcott? He know about this? The deputy and the suit exchanged glances. Sheriff Wolcott doesn't have jurisdiction over family court matters. How convenient. Mara appeared at the top of the stairs, Leora in her arms. Her face was white, but her voice was steady. What's this about? The suit looked up at her. Miss Vale, I'm here to take custody of the child pending a court hearing regarding your fitness as a mother. Based on what? Allegations of mental instability, concerns about the child's safety, reports that you're living with a man not your husband in questionable circumstances. Those are lies. The court will determine that. For now, I need you to hand over the child. No. Miss Vale, no. You're not taking my daughter. The suit sighed like he was dealing with a difficult child. I understand this is emotional, but the law is clear. If you refuse to comply, I'll have to ask the deputies to take the child by force. Try it, Mrs. Chen said from the doorway. See how that works out for you. The suit looked at the deputies. Gentlemen? Neither deputy moved. They were looking at Elias, at the gun, at Mrs. Chen's iron expression, doing math that didn't add up to a good outcome. Sir, one of them said slowly, maybe we should wait for Sheriff Wolcott, get his input. This isn't his jurisdiction. Still, might be smart. Avoid any complications. The suit's jaw tightened, but he wasn't stupid. He could see how this would go if he pushed. Fine. 24 hours. Then we come back with a full escort, and if there's resistance, everyone here will be charged with obstruction. He left. The deputies followed, looking relieved. Mrs. Chen closed the door, locked it, leaned against it. That bought us a day. Maybe. Mara came down the stairs slowly, like her legs might give out. She sat heavily on the bottom step, holding Leora so tight the baby started to fuss. They're going to take her. Not if we can help it, Elias said. How? You heard him. Court order. Legal authority. What are we supposed to do? Shoot deputies? If we have to. Elias, I'm not joking. They're not taking Leora, whatever that means, however far we have to go. Mara looked at him. You'd really do that? Kill lawmen? For us? They're not lawmen. They're hired guns with badges, and yeah, I would. Mrs. Chen pushed off from the door. There might be another way. What way? Public opinion. Right now, this is happening quiet, behind closed doors, court orders, and legal language. But if we make noise, if we make it public, if we make it ugly, that changes things. How? Town meeting. Tonight. We call it ourselves. Invite everyone. Tell your story. Show them Leora. Show them the scars. Make them see what the Vales really are. You think people will care? Mara asked. Some will, some won't. But some is better than none. And right now, the Vales are counting on silence, on everything happening in shadows. We bring it into the light. They'll fight back. Of course they will. But fighting in public is different than fighting in private. Harder to disappear people when everyone's watching. Elias thought about it, turned it over, looked for the holes. It's risky. Everything's risky, Mrs. Chen said. But doing nothing guarantees we lose. At least this way we have a chance. Mara stood up, adjusted Leora on her hip. The baby had stopped fussing, was looking around with those dark eyes that looked too much like Marcus Vale's. Okay, let's do it. Mrs. Chen nodded. I'll spread the word. Meeting at 7. Town hall. Everyone's invited. Will they come? Some will come to support you. Some will come to condemn you. Some will just come for the entertainment. But they'll come. She was right. By 6:30, the town hall was packed. People standing in the aisles, crowding the doorway, craning to see. Elias counted maybe 80 people. In a town this size, that was practically everyone. The Vales were there too. Eleanor sat in the front row, flanked by Marcus and 3 men who had the look of hired muscle. Her face was calm, almost pleasant, like she was attending a church social instead of a trial. Sheriff Woolcott stood near the door, looking unhappy but present. The suit from earlier was there too, sitting near Eleanor, whispering in her ear. At 7, Mrs. Chen stood up at the front of the room. The noise died down. "Thank you all for coming. I know it's short notice, but there's a matter of justice that needs addressing, a matter that affects all of us, whether we know it or not." Someone in the back shouted, "Get on with it!" Mrs. Chen ignored them. "Mara Vale has a story to tell. I think you should hear it. Then you can decide for yourselves what's true." She stepped aside. Mara stood up. For a moment, she just stood there holding Leora, looking at all those faces, some curious, some hostile, some carefully blank. Then she spoke. "My name is Mara Vale. 2 months ago, my husband died. Thomas Vale. Most of you knew him. Some of you probably liked him. He could be charming when he wanted to be." She paused, took a breath. "But Thomas Vale was also a violent drunk who beat me bloody on a regular basis for 3 years, who broke my ribs, blacked my eyes, made me afraid to sleep in my own house." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Eleanor's face remained calm. "When he died, his family blamed me, said I must have driven him to drink, must have provoked him. Some even suggested I killed him, though the doctor said clearly it was an accident." Mara's voice got stronger. "Then they discovered I was pregnant, and because Thomas couldn't have children, something everyone knew but pretended not to know, they decided the baby wasn't his, that I'd betrayed the family, shamed them." More murmurs. Eleanor whispered something to the suit. "So they held a trial. Just them. No judge, no jury, no chance for me to defend myself, and they sentenced me to death." Mara pulled down her collar, showed the rope scars on her wrists. "They tied me to a post on Widow's Ridge, left me there to freeze. I went into labor alone, gave birth in the snow with no help. They took my baby, told me she was dead, and left us both to die." The room was dead silent now. "But we didn't die. This man, Elias Boone, found us, saved us, brought us back from the edge." Mara looked at Eleanor. "And now the family that tried to murder me wants to take my daughter, claim she's theirs, raise her as one of them. A Vale." She held up Leora. The baby blinked in the lantern light, small and perfect and alive. "This is Leora, my daughter. She's 3 months old. She was born in a snowstorm on a frozen ridge while her mother was tied to a post. And she survived. We both survived. And I'll be damned if I let the people who tried to kill us take her now." Mara sat down, the silence stretched. Then Eleanor stood up. She didn't look angry, didn't look defensive. She looked almost sad. "That was quite a story, Mara. Very dramatic, very emotional." Eleanor's voice was gentle, reasonable. "But it's just that, a story. None of it is true. I have scars. You have marks on your wrists, which could have come from anywhere, from anything. You've provided no proof that anyone from our family harmed you. You were there. You watched me give birth. You cut the cord." "Did I? Or is that what you remember in your trauma, in your grief?" Eleanor turned to address the crowd. Mara suffered a terrible loss. Her husband died. She was pregnant and alone and frightened. I don't blame her for being confused, for creating stories to explain her pain, but confusion isn't truth. "I'm not confused." "The child," Eleanor continued, speaking over her, "is Vale blood. We've had a doctor examine her. She has the family features. Marcus's eyes, Thomas's chin. She belongs with us, with family who can provide for her, educate her, give her opportunities this poor girl never could. This poor girl is her mother, a mother who's clearly not well, who's living in sin with a strange man, who's dragging this innocent baby through the mountains, putting her at risk." Eleanor's voice hardened slightly. "The court has already determined that custody should be reviewed. We're not trying to steal anyone's child. We're trying to protect her." The crowd was shifting. Elias could feel it. Eleanor was good, knew exactly what to say, how to sound reasonable while making Mara sound crazy. He stood up. "I was there, on Widow's Ridge. I saw Mara tied to that post, saw the baby at her feet, blue from cold, barely breathing, saw the blood in the snow. That's not a story. That's what I witnessed with my own eyes. Eleanor turned to him. And what were you doing on Widow's Ridge, Mr. Boone? A remote location where no one goes in winter? Passing through. Coming back from a supply run. How convenient. That you just happened to be there, just happened to find her. Eleanor smiled. Or perhaps you were meeting her. Perhaps this whole situation was planned. A way to extort money from our family? That's bullshit. Is it? You appear out of nowhere, save a woman you claim to have never met. Immediately take her side against a prominent family, refuse our offers of compensation, and now you're standing in a town hall making accusations. Eleanor's voice dropped. Sounds like someone looking to cause trouble for profit. The crowd was murmuring again, louder now, some people nodding along with Eleanor. Elias felt it slipping away, felt the narrative being rewritten in real time. Then Mrs. Chen stood up. I knew your husband, Eleanor, Jeremiah Vale. He killed a Chinese miner in 1855, bashed his head in with a rock over a disputed claim. Your family paid the right people, made it go away. But everyone here knows it happened. Everyone here knows your family thinks laws don't apply to them. Eleanor's calm finally cracked, just a little. That's ancient history. And it has everything to do with it. It shows a pattern. A family that thinks they can do whatever they want, hurt whoever they want, and face no consequences. Mrs. Chen looked at the crowd. How many of you have stories about the Vales? About land they took? Debts they called in? People they ruined? Silence. But a different kind now. Uncomfortable. Knowing. None of you will speak up because you're scared. Because they have power and money and connections. But that little girl up there? Mrs. Chen pointed at Leora. She can't protect herself, can't speak for herself. So we have to. All of us. Or what are we? Someone in the back spoke up. An old man, voice shaking but clear. My son worked for the Vales, died in a mining accident 15 years back. They said it was his fault, didn't pay out his wages. My daughter-in-law starved that winter. A woman stood up. They foreclosed on my family's farm. We were one payment behind. One. They took everything. Another voice. Thomas Vale beat my cousin half to death in a saloon. Sheriff Barrett called it a fair fight. Everyone knew it wasn't. The room started buzzing, people speaking up, sharing stories, years of resentment bubbling to the surface. Eleanor stood there, her face frozen as the town turned against her. Finally, Sheriff Wolcott stepped forward. Enough. This isn't a trial. This is mob justice. He looked at Eleanor. But it's also clear this situation needs proper investigation, real investigation, not a court order rushed through by a bought judge. Sheriff, you have no authority. I have every authority. This is my county, my jurisdiction. And I'm telling you right now that the child stays with her mother until a fair hearing can be arranged, a real hearing, with real evidence, not backroom deals. Judge Morrison can take it up with the territorial governor if he likes. I'll be writing him tonight, explaining the situation, all of it. Eleanor's face went hard as stone. You're making a mistake, Sheriff. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Eleanor gathered her entourage and swept out of the hall. Marcus followed, his face red with humiliation. The crowd started dispersing, people talking in clusters, the energy still high. Mara sat down heavily. She was shaking. Did we just win? We bought time, Elias said. That's all. Is that enough? For now? But even as he said it, Elias knew the truth. They hadn't won. They just made the Vales angrier. And angry people with power didn't back down. They escalated. The fire started at 2 a.m. Elias smelled smoke before he heard the screams. He was up and moving before his brain fully registered what was happening, grabbing his rifle and boots in the same motion. The hallway was filling with smoke, thick and black and wrong. Fire! Everyone out! Mrs. Chen's voice from somewhere below, sharp and commanding even through the chaos. Elias kicked open Mara's door. She was already awake, Leora clutched to her chest, eyes wide with terror. Come on, now! They moved fast, down the stairs through smoke that burned their lungs and stung their eyes. Other boarders were stumbling out of rooms, coughing, panicking. Mrs. Chen was at the bottom directing traffic like a general, pushing people toward the front door. Out! All of you! Don't stop for anything! They spilled into the street. The night air was cold and clean, and Elias sucked it down in gasping lungfuls. Behind them, flames were already licking out of the first-floor windows. The fire was spreading fast. Too fast. Everyone accounted for? Mrs. Chen was doing a head count, her face illuminated by the growing flames. I think so. Yes. Everyone's out. The town's volunteer fire brigade was already forming up, men running with buckets, trying to set up a water chain from the well. But Elias could see it was hopeless. The building was going up like kindling. Mara stood next to him, holding Leora, watching her refuge burn. This was them. You don't know that, don't I? She turned to look at him. Day after we humiliate them in public? Day after the whole town turns against them, and our building just happens to catch fire in the middle of the night? Elias didn't argue because she was right. Sheriff Wolcott appeared, still pulling his suspenders up over his nightshirt. He took one look at the blaze and cursed. Anyone hurt? No, everyone got out. Small miracle. He turned to Mrs. Chen. Where did it start? Kitchen, maybe? I don't know. I was asleep. You banked the stove before bed? Like I do every night. Checked it twice. Wolcott's jaw tightened. He looked at the fire, at the people gathered in the street, at Mara and Elias. This wasn't an accident. No, it wasn't. Can you prove it? Probably not. But we both know who did it. Wolcott didn't answer, just stood there watching the building burn, his face carved from stone. By dawn, there was nothing left but smoking timber and ash. Mrs. Chen stood looking at the ruins of her home, her livelihood, her life. Her face was dry, but her eyes held something worse than tears. 20 years. I built that place over 20 years. I'm sorry, Mara said quietly. Mrs. Chen looked at her. Not your fault. Isn't it? They did this because of me, because you helped me. They did this because they're criminals who think they can do whatever they want. That's on them, not you. Still, I brought this to your door, and I opened it knowing the risks. Don't you dare apologize for surviving. The other boarders had scattered, finding temporary shelter with friends or family. But Mara and Elias had nowhere to go. They stood in the street as the sun came up, everything they owned reduced to what they were wearing and what was in Elias's saddlebags back at the livery. We can't stay here, Elias said finally. Not anymore. Where do we go? I don't know. But staying means more people get hurt, more buildings burn. The veils won't stop until we're dead or gone. Or until they're stopped. Elias looked at her. You want to fight them? Really fight them? Because that's what you're talking about. Not legal fights or public opinion. Actual violence. They burned Mrs. Chen's house. They could have killed everyone inside, including Leora. Mara's voice was quiet but hard. I'm done running. Done hiding. Done letting them dictate what happens to us. Fighting back means people die. Probably us. We're already dying. Just slowly. At least this way we choose how. Before Elias could respond, a commotion erupted down the street. Shouting. People running. They turned to see smoke rising from another building. The general store this time. No! Sheriff Wolcott started running. By the time they got there, the store was fully engulfed. The owner stood outside weeping while his wife held him back from running inside. My stock! Everything! It's all in there. Another building. Another life destroyed. And in the growing crowd, Elias saw Marcus Vale standing at the edge, watching, not even trying to hide. His face held a small, satisfied smile. Their eyes met. Marcus touched the brim of his hat, a mock salute. Then he turned and walked away. Wolcott saw it too. His hand went to his gun, but he didn't draw. Too many witnesses. Too public. But his face promised that this wasn't over. They're sending a message, Mara said. Yeah, they are. What do we do? Elias watched Marcus disappear around a corner, watched the general store burn, watched a town being terrorized because 2 people dared to stand up. We send one back. They found temporary shelter in the livery stable. The owner, a gruff man named Carson who'd spoken up at the town meeting, offered them space in his loft. Not much, but it's dry and warm enough. We can pay. Don't want your money, just want to do what's right. Carson looked at Leora. That baby deserves better than what those bastards are offering. That night, Elias and Sheriff Wolcott had a conversation in the stable while Mara tried to get Leora to sleep. I can't protect you, Wolcott said bluntly. Not against this. Not when they're willing to burn down the whole town to get to you. I know. I've sent word to the territorial governor, to the federal marshal, but that takes time. Weeks, maybe. Months. We don't have weeks. No, you don't. Wolcott pulled out a folded piece of paper. There's a settlement 3 days north of here. Place called Covenant Falls, small community. Farmers mostly. Some miners. They're independent. Don't have ties to the Vales. You want us to run there? I want you to survive there. Let things cool down. Let me build a case against the Vales for arson, for attempted murder, for everything. Once I have enough evidence, once the federal authorities get involved, then you can come back. Testify properly. Elias took the paper. It was a hand-drawn map with directions. What makes you think they won't follow us? Nothing. But at least you'll have a head start. And Covenant Falls has people who remember what it's like to be pushed around by the powerful. They might help. Might. It's the best I can offer. Elias looked at the map. 3 days hard riding through mountain passes that would be treacherous this time of year, with a woman still recovering from childbirth and a baby barely 3 months old. We'll think about it. Don't think too long. Next fire might be this stable, with you in it. After Wolcott left, Elias climbed up to the loft. Mara was lying on a pile of hay, Leora finally asleep on her chest. She looked up when he entered. I heard. What do you think? I think running to another town just means bringing our problems there, getting more people hurt. Maybe. No, maybe about it. The Vales won't stop because we change locations. They'll just keep coming, keep burning, keep destroying until they get what they want. So what's your solution? Mara was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. We kill them first. Elias sat down heavily. You're serious? Yes. You know what you're saying? We'd be murderers. Hunted. No different than them. We'd be alive. Leora would be alive. Safe. Would we? Or would we just be starting a blood feud that never ends? Kill Eleanor and Marcus, and someone else steps up. Cousins, brothers, someone. Then we kill them too. Keep killing until there's no one left to come after us. That's not life. That's survival at the cost of your soul. Mara laughed bitterly. My soul? You think I have one of those left after everything they've done, everything they've taken? She adjusted Leora carefully. I used to believe in being good, in doing the right thing, in trusting that justice would prevail. And where did that get me? Tied to a post. Left to die. Watching my baby turn blue from cold. And now you want to become like them? No. I want to protect my daughter. There's a difference. Is there? The question hung in the air between them. Finally, Mara looked away. I don't know anymore. I don't know what's right. All I know is I can't keep running, can't keep waiting for them to make the next move, can't keep losing ground. Then we need a different plan, one that doesn't turn us into the thing we're fighting. I'm listening. Elias thought about it, turned it over, looked at the problem from every angle he could think of. Wolcott said it takes time to build a case, to get federal authorities involved. But what if we gave him everything he needed right now? What do you mean? Someone has to know something. Someone who works for the Vales, someone who was there when they took you to that ridge, someone who saw what happened, who knows about the fires. And you think they'll just tell us? Risk their lives by going against the family that employs them? Not willingly, but people talk when they're scared, when they think they're about to lose everything. You're talking about threats. I'm talking about leverage, about finding someone vulnerable and pushing until they break. Mara studied him. You've done this before. In the war, different context, same principle. And it worked? Sometimes. Other times people died. But we're out of good options here. Leora stirred, made a small sound, then settled back into sleep. Mara looked at her daughter, at the tiny face, peaceful and unaware. Okay, how do we start? Over the next 2 days, Elias watched the Vales, tracked their movements, identified patterns. Eleanor stayed mostly at the Vale estate outside town, untouchable behind walls and armed guards. Marcus was more mobile. He came to town regularly, usually with 2 or 3 men. They'd drink at the saloon, make threats, intimidate people. But they were careful. Nothing overt. Nothing that could be proven. The weak link, Elias realized, wasn't Marcus or Eleanor. It was the help. The men who did the actual dirty work. The ones who lit the fires, who carried messages, who enforced the family's will with violence and fear. One of them was a man named Garrett, mid-30s, thin, with the haunted look of someone who'd seen too much and liked it too little. He worked as a ranch hand, but everyone knew his real job was muscle. Elias watched Garrett for a day and a half, noted his routines, where he drank, where he slept, who he talked to. On the third night, Elias followed Garrett when he left the saloon, waited until he was alone in the alley behind the boarding stable. Then Elias stepped out of the shadows with his rifle pointed at Garrett's chest. "Don't move. Don't shout. Don't do anything stupid." Garrett froze. His hand started toward his belt but stopped when Elias cocked the rifle. "I said don't." "Who are you?" "Someone who wants to ask you some questions. You answer them truthfully, you walk away. You lie, or you run. And I put a hole in you. Clear?" Garrett nodded slowly. "Good. First question. Who started the fires? The boarding house and the general store." "I don't know what you're—" Elias fired. The bullet hit the ground 6 inches from Garrett's left foot. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. "Wrong answer. Try again." Garrett's face had gone white. "Jesus Christ. Who started the fires?" "Marcus. Marcus Vale gave the order. We just followed through." "We? Who's we?" "Me and Pete Holloway. Marcus paid us $50 each. You know people could have died in those fires? We made sure the buildings were clear, watched, made sure everyone got out." "How generous. Did you also make sure to burn everything they owned, everything they worked for?" Garrett didn't answer. Second question. Who was there when they took Mara Vale to Widow's Ridge? Who helped tie her up? "I wasn't—" Another shot. This one closer. "Stop lying." Okay. I was there. Me, Pete, and 2 others. Eleanor paid us. Said it was family justice. Said the woman deserved it." "Did you know she was pregnant?" "Yeah." "Did you know she'd be giving birth up there? Alone? In the snow?" "Eleanor said— She said nature would decide. If the woman survived, then she was innocent. If she died, then judgment was served." "And the baby?" Garrett looked away. "Eleanor took the baby. Said she'd take care of it. Then she came back without it. Said it was dead." "But it wasn't." "I didn't know that. Not until later. When I saw her in town with you." Elias lowered the rifle slightly. "You going to keep working for people who make you do things like that?" "I need the money." "Need it enough to keep being a murderer?" "I haven't murdered anyone." "You left a woman and baby to die. In the eyes of the law, that's murder. In the eyes of any decent person, that's murder. You just got lucky they survived." Garrett's shoulders slumped. "What do you want from me?" "A statement, written, signed. Everything you just told me. Everything you know about what the Vales have done." "They'll kill me." "Maybe. Or maybe you testify, help put them in prison, and you get to live with a conscience that's slightly less black." "And if I don't?" "Then I shoot you now. Save everyone the trouble." Elias meant it, and Garrett could tell. Okay, I'll write it. I'll testify. Just let me live." "Write it tonight. Bring it to Sheriff Wolcott tomorrow. If you run, if you warn the Vales, I will find you, and next time I won't miss. Understand?" Garrett nodded miserably. Elias backed away, keeping the rifle trained on him until he was out of sight. Then he disappeared into the night. The next morning, Garrett showed up at the sheriff's office. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the pen to sign his statement, but he did it. Wolcott read it through twice. His expression got darker with each line. "This is enough. More than enough. I can arrest Eleanor and Marcus on attempted murder, arson, conspiracy." "Will it stick?" Elias asked. "With this testimony? With the physical evidence from the fires? Yeah, it'll stick." "Then do it." Wolcott stood up, grabbed his gun belt. "Stay here, both of you. I'm bringing in deputies from the county seat. We're going to do this by the book, legal, proper." He left. Elias and Mara waited in the sheriff's office. Minutes crawled by like hours. Leora was fussy, sensing the tension. Mara walked her back and forth, humming softly, trying to soothe both the baby and herself. "Do you think it'll work?" she asked finally. "I think we have a chance, first real chance we've had. And if they fight back? If they don't come quietly? Then things get messy." An hour passed, then 2. Then they heard the gunshots. Elias grabbed his rifle and ran outside. Mara followed, Leora clutched tight. Down the street, near the edge of town, smoke was rising, more buildings burning, and the sound of guns echoing off the mountains. They ran toward it. The Vale estate was 3 miles outside town, but Marcus had been staying at a rented house on the outskirts. That's where Wolcott had gone with his deputies. That's where the shooting was happening. When Elias and Mara got there, the house was surrounded. Wolcott and 4 deputies had taken positions behind wagons and water troughs. Return fire was coming from the windows. Wolcott saw them and waved them back. "Get down. Get out of here." "What happened?" "They started shooting the second we announced ourselves. Marcus and 3 of his men are barricaded inside." "Eleanor?" "Still at the estate. We'll get her after we deal with this." More gunfire. A deputy cried out, grabbed his shoulder, fell back. "How long are you going to keep this up?" Elias shouted. "Until they surrender or we go in." "And how many people die before that happens?" Wolcott didn't answer. Elias made a decision. A stupid one, probably. But standing here watching wasn't going to solve anything. He started moving, using cover, working his way around the side of the house. "What are you doing?" Wolcott yelled. Elias didn't answer, just kept moving. He reached the back of the house. There was a door, probably leading to a kitchen or pantry. He tested it carefully. Locked. He kicked it in. The sound brought someone running. One of Marcus's men, wild-eyed and trigger-happy. He fired twice, missed both times. Elias didn't miss. The man went down. Elias moved through the house, room by room, checking corners, listening. He found the second man in the parlor, reloading by the front window. The man heard him, turned, tried to bring his gun up. Too slow. Elias fired once, center mass. The man collapsed. That left Marcus and 1 more. Elias cleared the upstairs. Empty. They were all on the ground floor then. He heard voices, arguing. "We can't stay here. They'll burn us out." "Shut up. Just shut up and keep shooting." Marcus, scared and angry and desperate. Elias moved toward the sound, found them in a bedroom. Marcus and a young man who looked like he might be family. A cousin, maybe. They saw him at the same time he saw them. Everything slowed down. Marcus raised his gun. Elias fired first. Marcus went down, screaming, clutching his leg. Not dead, but definitely out of the fight. The cousin dropped his weapon, hands up, eyes wide with terror. "Don't shoot! Please don't shoot!" "Get out! Hands on your head! Now!" The cousin complied, scrambling toward the door. Elias moved to Marcus, kicked his gun away, looked down at the man who'd raped Mara, who'd burned buildings, who'd tried to take Leora. "You should have left us alone." Marcus looked up at him, face twisted with pain and hate. "You're dead. Both of you. My mother will... Your mother's next, after you testify about everything you've done." "I'm not testifying to anything." "Then you'll rot in prison without even that much dignity." Elias called out to Wolcott. "It's clear. Marcus is down. The others are dead or surrendered." Deputies flooded in. They took Marcus, hauled him out, still screaming about lawyers and rights and revenge. Wolcott grabbed Elias's arm. "That was stupid. It worked. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. Next time." "There won't be a next time. This ends today." They arrested Eleanor that afternoon. She came quietly, surrounded by lawyers, already working the angles. But with Garrett's testimony and Marcus's arrest, even her money and connections couldn't make this disappear. The territorial governor got involved. Federal marshals arrived. The story spread. Prominent family exposed for attempted murder, arson, intimidation. The Vales' empire started crumbling. Property liens were filed. Business partners backed away. Political allies found reasons to be elsewhere. Within a week, the family that had terrorized the region for decades was reduced to legal battles and fading influence. Mara watched it happen from the safety of a new boarding house. This one paid for by donations from townsfolk who'd finally found the courage to stand up. "Is it really over?" she asked Elias one evening. "The immediate threat? Yeah, But the legal stuff will take months, years maybe. Will they go to prison? Eleanor and Marcus? Probably. Especially with Garrett's testimony. The others depends on how good their lawyers are. Mara looked at Leora, who was trying to grab her own feet and getting frustrated when they kept moving. I can't believe we're here, still alive. Still together. Wasn't sure we'd make it. Me neither. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Finally, Mara spoke again. What happens now, after the trials, after everything settles? What do you want to happen? I don't know. For so long I've been running or fighting or just trying to survive. I haven't thought about what comes after. You could stay here. Build a life. You'd have support now, people who'd help. Could I? Or would I always be the woman who brought trouble, who got buildings burned? People have short memories. Give it time. Mara looked at him. What about you? Where do you go when this is over? Elias hadn't thought that far ahead. For months now, his entire focus had been on keeping Mara and Leora alive, on fighting the Veils, on surviving one more day. The idea of after felt foreign. I don't know. Maybe back to the cabin. Maybe somewhere new. Haven't decided. You could stay too. In town? Why not? You're a hero now. The man who stood up to the Veils. People respect that. People forget that too. Once the excitement dies down, Mara shifted Leora to her other arm. I'm not asking you to stay forever. I'm saying you don't have to leave. You don't have to go back to hiding in the mountains like you're doing penance for something that wasn't your fault. You don't know what was my fault. Sarah's death? Your wife leaving? Whatever else is eating at you? Mara's voice was gentle but firm. None of that was your fault. Bad things happened. You survived. That's not a crime. Feels like it sometimes. I know, but maybe it's time to forgive yourself. Let go. Start actually living instead of just existing. Elias didn't have an answer for that. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the mountains in shades of gold and purple. Somewhere out there was his cabin, his isolation, his self-imposed exile. And here was community, connection, purpose. He didn't know which one he wanted, but for the first time in 5 years, he had the option to choose. That alone felt like victory. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Eleanor Vale sat in the defendant's chair like she was presiding over a charity function, back straight, face composed. Her lawyers were expensive and relentless, attacking every piece of evidence, every witness, trying to poke holes in the prosecution's case. But Garrett's testimony held, and when Mara took the stand showing her scars, telling her story in a voice that didn't shake even when Eleanor's lead attorney called her a liar, something shifted in the courtroom. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Eleanor's face finally cracked when they read the verdict. Not much, just a tightening around her eyes, a slight tremor in her hands. But it was enough. Marcus had already pled out, testifying against his mother in exchange for a reduced sentence. 20 years instead of life. He'd be an old man when he got out, assuming he survived prison at all. Eleanor got life with no possibility of parole. The courtroom erupted, some people cheering, some crying, some just sitting in stunned silence that justice had actually happened. Mara didn't cheer, she just stood there holding Leora, looking at the woman who'd left her to die. Eleanor looked back, their eyes met across the courtroom. Then Eleanor smiled, small, cold, and Mara understood. Even in defeat, Eleanor thought she'd won something. Had taken something from Mara that could never be returned, had marked her permanently. Maybe she had. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. The territorial governor had sent observers. Federal authorities were talking about investigating other Vale family business dealings, looking for more crimes. The story had gotten big. Too big. Elias hated it. All the attention, all the questions. People treating him like a hero when he'd just been trying to survive. He and Mara pushed through the crowd, ignoring shouted questions, and made it to the boarding house. Mrs. Chen had rebuilt. Not the same building, the old one was ash, but a new place 2 blocks over, smaller, more modest, but hers. They sat in the parlor while Leora napped upstairs. It's done, Mara said quietly. Yeah, I thought I'd feel different, relieved maybe, or satisfied, but I just feel empty. That's normal. You've been running on fear and adrenaline for months. Now that the threat's gone, your body doesn't know what to do. Is it gone, though? Really? Eleanor's in prison, but she has family, cousins, business partners, people who might come looking for revenge. Maybe. Or maybe they're smart enough to cut their losses and move on. You believe that? Elias thought about it. No, but I want to. Mara laughed, tired. Honest, at least. Sheriff Wolcott stopped by that evening. He looked exhausted, but something like satisfied. Federal marshals are taking over the Vale estate, seizing assets. Apparently, Eleanor and Jeremiah built that empire on fraud, extortion, and worse, going back 30 years. They'll lose everything? Most of it. Some will go to victims, some to the territory. The rest? Who knows? Legal fees, probably. Good. Wolcott sat down heavily. You two planning to stay in Silver Ridge? Haven't decided, Mara said. Town council voted last night. They want to give you land, good land, north of here near the river, place to build, start over. Mara looked surprised. Why? Because you stood up when no one else would. Because you made them face what they'd been ignoring for years. And because they feel guilty. Wolcott shrugged. Take it, don't take it, your choice. But the offer stands. After he left, Mara stood at the window, looking out at the town, at the mountains beyond. Land, a real chance to build something. You sound skeptical. I sound tired of fighting, of looking over my shoulder, of wondering when the next threat comes. She turned to face Elias. What if I'm not strong enough for this? For building a life, for being the person everyone seems to think I am? You survived being left to die in a snowstorm. I think you can handle farming. That's different. Survival is instinct. This is choice, and choices are harder. Elias understood that. Choices meant responsibility, meant facing the future instead of just reacting to the present. What do you want, Mara? Really want? Not what you think you should want, not what people expect, just you. Mara was quiet for a long time. Upstairs, Leora started crying. The sound was familiar now. Normal. Not the thin, desperate wail from that ridge, but the healthy complaint of a fed, warm baby who wanted attention. I want Leora to grow up without fear, without looking at men and wondering which ones are dangerous, without learning to make herself small and quiet to survive. Mara's voice was steady. I want her to be loud, to take up space, to expect the world to treat her fairly and fight back when it doesn't. That's a good want. And I want to stop feeling like I'm waiting for permission to exist, like I have to apologize for being alive, for taking up resources, for asking for help. She looked at him. The veils taught me to shrink, to accept, to believe I deserved whatever happened to me. And even though they're gone, even though Eleanor's in prison, I still hear her voice sometimes, still feel small. That takes time to unlearn. Will I, though? Unlearn it? Or will I always be broken? You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference. Mara's eyes filled with tears. What if I can't do this alone? Then don't do it alone. You're leaving, back to your cabin, back to your mountains. Am I? Aren't you? Elias realized he didn't know the answer anymore. The cabin had been refuge, safety, a place to hide from the world and himself. But it had also been a prison, a place where nothing changed, nothing grew, nothing mattered. I don't know what I'm doing. I've been existing for 5 years, not living, just existing. And I don't know how to stop. Maybe we figure it out together, two broken people trying to be whole. That's not fair to you. You deserve someone who has their life together. Mara laughed, actually laughed. You think there's anyone like that? Everyone's broken, Elias. Everyone's carrying something. The question isn't whether you're damaged, it's whether you're willing to keep trying anyway. Upstairs, Leora's crying got louder, more insistent. Mara went to get her, came back down with the baby on her hips, still fussing. She's teething, makes her cranky. She's 3 months old. Early teether, apparently, just my luck. But Mara was smiling when she said it, tired but real. Elias watched her bounce Leora, humming something tuneless and soothing. Watched the baby gradually calm down, stop crying, start making those small content sounds babies make when they feel safe. And something in his chest that had been locked tight for 5 years loosened just slightly. Not fixed, not healed. Just less tight. The land the town offered was beautiful. 20 acres along the river, with good soil and a view of the mountains that made your throat ache. Elias and Mara walked it together one morning while Mrs. Chen watched Liora. "Could build here," Elias said, pointing to a slight rise. "Away from flooding. Good sightlines." "You're thinking defensively. Old habits. We don't have to defend ourselves anymore." "Maybe, but doesn't hurt to be smart." They walked further, found a grove of aspens that shimmered gold in the morning light. "Liora would love this when she's older, playing in the trees." "Yeah, she would." Mara stopped walking, turned to face him. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay. Why did you really stop on that ridge? The truth, not the story about Sarah crying." Elias took a breath. Let it out slow. "Because I was tired of being dead, tired of hiding, tired of pretending that isolation was the same as peace. When I heard that baby crying, it wasn't just Sarah. It was every opportunity I'd wasted, every connection I'd run from, every chance at mattering that I'd let slip away." He paused. "I stopped because some part of me knew that if I didn't, I'd never stop running, never stop hiding, never actually live again." "So you saved us to save yourself." "Maybe. Is that selfish?" "No, it's human." Mara stepped closer. "I need to tell you something too. About that night on the ridge after Eleanor left, when I thought Liora was dead and I was dying. You don't have to... I wanted to die. Not just accepted it, wanted it, because living seemed harder than dying. Seemed like too much work for too little reward." Her voice dropped. "And then you showed up, cut me loose, saved us both. And I was angry, so angry, because you'd taken away my easy way out, forced me to keep fighting when I didn't want to anymore. I'm sorry." "Don't be. Because you were right to do it. Because Liora deserved a chance. Because I deserved a chance, even when I didn't believe it." Mara reached out, took his hand. "We're both here because we chose to be. Every day since that ridge, we've chosen to keep going, to keep fighting, to keep each other alive. That's not weakness. That's strength." "Doesn't always feel strong." "No, most days it feels like barely hanging on, but that counts too." They stood there in the grove holding hands while the aspens whispered around them and the river sang in the distance. "If I stayed," Elias said carefully, "if I built a house on this land, if I tried to actually have a life instead of just surviving, what would that look like?" "I don't know. We'd figure it out as we went." "I'm not good at figuring things out." "Neither am I. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't have to be good at it, just willing to try." Elias looked at her, really looked. At the scars on her wrists, the tired lines around her eyes, the strength in her jaw, at all the ways she'd been broken and refused to stay that way. "Okay." "Okay? Yeah, let's try." Mara smiled, first genuinely happy smile he'd seen from her since that ridge. "Okay." They started building in early summer, not a big house, just something solid. 2 rooms to start, with plans to add more as needed. The town helped. Men came on their days off to raise walls, lay flooring, build a chimney. Women brought food, watched Liora, offered advice on everything from where to put windows to how to keep mice out of the larder. Mrs. Chen supervised like a general, making sure everything was done right. You build it wrong, you live with it forever. Better to do it right the first time. Elias and Mara worked side by side. She was better with detail work. He was better with heavy lifting. They argued about door placement, about roof pitch, about whether they needed shutters or not. Normal arguments, the kind couples have when they're building something together. It felt strange, but good. One evening, after everyone else had gone home, they sat on what would eventually be the front porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. "I've been thinking," Mara said. "About?" "Names, legal names. Lyora's going to need documents eventually. Birth records, legal identity, and right now she's technically Liora Vale. You want to change it?" "Yeah, but to what? My maiden name was Carpenter, but that feels like going backward. And I'm not who I was before Thomas, before the Vales, before all of this. So pick something new, something that means something to you." Mara thought about it. "What's your last name, your real one?" "Boone." "Just Boone?" No family history? No meaning? It's the name I was born with. Don't know if it means anything beyond that. Would you mind if we used it? Leora Boone has a nice sound. Elias felt something catch in his throat. You sure? That's making a statement. I know. I want to make it. People will assume we're married. Let them assume. We'll tell the truth if anyone asks. But I like the idea of us being a family, chosen family, the kind you build instead of the kind you're born into. What about you, Mara Boone? She tested it out. Mara Boone. Yeah, I like it. Feels like a new start, clean slate. Nothing's ever really clean. We'll still carry what happened. I know, but maybe we carry it together. Make it lighter. They sat in silence for a while, watching darkness creep across the valley. Tell me about Sarah, Mara said quietly. Not how she died. Who she was. What she loved. Elias hadn't talked about Sarah in years. Hadn't let himself remember the good parts because they hurt worse than the bad. But Mara was asking, and maybe it was time. She loved horses. Would spend hours at the stable just watching them. Didn't even need to ride. Just watching made her happy. He smiled, remembering. And she collected rocks. Not special rocks. Just any rock that caught her eye. Had a whole basket of them. Her mother hated it. Thought it was dirty. But Sarah would spend hours arranging them, making patterns. She sounds wonderful. She was. She was everything good that I wasn't. Don't do that. Don't make her perfect. Perfect people don't exist. She was probably difficult sometimes. Probably threw tantrums. Probably did things that drove you crazy. She did. Used to refuse to eat anything green. Wouldn't even try it. Just flat refusal. And she'd wake up at dawn no matter what, every single day, 5 in the morning, up and ready to go. See? Human. Not a saint, just a kid. Yeah, just a kid. Do you think she'd want you to stop living? To hide in the mountains forever? No, she'd probably think I was being stupid. Tell me to stop moping and do something useful. Smart kid. Yeah, she was. Mara reached over, took his hand. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for asking. The house was finished by late August. Simple but solid. A bedroom for Mara and Leora. A smaller room for Elias. A main room with a fireplace and a kitchen area. A porch that wrapped around 3 sides. They moved in on a Saturday. Brought in the few possessions they'd accumulated. Set up furniture donated by townsfolk. Hung curtains Mara had sewn from fabric. Mrs. Chen insisted they take. That night, they sat at their new table, eating stew Mara had made while Leora dozed in a cradle Elias had built. This is ours, Mara said, looking around. Actually ours. No one can take it. No one can burn it down. They could try, but they won't. The veils are done. Eleanor's in prison. Marcus is in prison. The estate is seized. It's over. You really believe that? I have to. I can't keep living in fear. Can't keep waiting for the next attack. At some point, I have to trust that we're safe. And if we're not, then we fight again. But I'm not going to spend every day preparing for war. Not anymore. Elias understood. Fear was exhausting. Constant vigilance wore you down. At some point, you had to choose to live instead of just survive. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we're safe. This is home. We're done running. Mara smiled, raised her cup. To home. To home. They drank. The stew was good. The house was warm. And for the first time in longer than either of them could remember, the future felt like something other than a threat. Fall came to the mountains in a riot of gold and red. The aspens turned, the air got crisp, and Leora started sitting up on her own, grabbing at everything within reach. Elias built them furniture, a proper bed for Mara, a chest for Leora's growing collection of clothes and toys, a rocking chair for the porch. Mara started a garden, too late for this year but preparing for next spring, planning what to plant, where to put things. They fell into routines, breakfast together, work during the day, dinner together, evenings on the porch while Leora played on a blanket, learning to roll over, to grab her toes, to make sounds that were almost words. It was domestic, ordinary, everything Elias had run from 5 years ago, and it was good. One evening in October, as winter started making threats from the north, Mara said something that had clearly been building for a while. I want to thank you, properly, for everything you've done. You've thanked me plenty. Not really. I've said the words. But I don't think you've heard what I'm actually saying. Elias looked at her. What are you actually saying? That you saved my life. Leora's life. And I know you'll say you were just doing what anyone would do, but that's not true. Most people would have ridden past, would have assumed it was a trap, would have protected themselves first. She paused. You didn't. You stopped. You helped. You fought for us when you had every reason to walk away. And I want you to know that I see that. I understand what it cost you. It didn't cost me anything. It cost you your isolation, your safety, your peace. You'd built this whole life where you didn't have to care about anyone, where you didn't have to risk getting hurt, and you gave that up for strangers. You're not strangers anymore. No, we're not. We're family, chosen family, and that's what I'm trying to say. Thank you for choosing us, for choosing to care, for choosing to live again instead of just exist. Elias felt his throat tighten. I didn't have a choice. Not really. When I heard Leora crying, something in me woke up, something I thought was dead. What? Hope, maybe, or purpose, or just the belief that things could matter again. I don't know, but it was there, and I couldn't ignore it. I'm glad you didn't. They sat in comfortable silence while the sun set and the mountains turned purple in the fading light. What happens next? Elias asked finally. What do you mean? We've built a house. We're safe. The veils are gone. What do we do now? Live. Actually live. Not survive. Not fight. Just be. I don't know how to do that. Me neither. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we learn together. Leora made a happy sound from her blanket. She'd found her foot and was trying to eat it, utterly delighted with this discovery. She's not going to remember any of this, Mara said softly. The ridge, the running, the fear. She'll grow up thinking this is normal. Home, safety, family. Is that good or bad? Good, I think. She gets to start clean, no trauma, no nightmares, just a regular life. Nothing's ever regular. Something always happens. But it won't be the same kind of something. It'll be normal problems, normal struggles. Not surviving, just living. Winter came hard and early that year. By November, they were snowed in, the world reduced to their small house and the white expanse around it. Elias chopped wood. Mara cooked and sewed and cared for Leora. They read books by firelight, talked, argued occasionally, laughed more than either expected. It was during one of those long winter evenings, with Leora asleep and the fire crackling, that Mara asked the question that had been sitting between them for months. Do you think about leaving? Elias looked up from the wood he was carving. What? The cabin, your old life. Do you miss it? Want to go back? Sometimes, when things get loud or complicated, when Leora's been crying for hours and I can't help, when I feel useless. You're not useless. I know, but old habits, old thoughts, they creep in. Would you? If you could go back, would you? Elias thought about it honestly. No, the cabin was refuge when I needed it, but it was also a tomb, a place to bury myself. I don't need that anymore. What do you need? This, you, Leora, purpose, connection, something that matters beyond just surviving another day. Mara smiled. Good answer. It's the truth. I know, that's what makes it good. She moved across the room, sat next to him on the bench. I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting. Okay. I love you. Elias went very still. Not like a friend, not like a partner or a roommate or a fellow survivor. I love you. Completely. Messily. In all the complicated ways a broken person can love another broken person. She took a breath. And I know that's probably not what you signed up for. I know you saved me out of duty or memory or whatever reason you tell yourself, but that's how I feel, and I needed you to know. Mara, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. I just needed to say it, to stop carrying it around like a secret. Elias set down the wood he'd been carving, turned to face her fully. I love you too. You don't have to. I love you too. Have for a while now. Maybe since you stood in that town hall and told your story. Maybe before. I don't know exactly when it happened, but it did. Mara's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? You're brave and strong and stubborn and difficult. You challenge me, make me want to be better, make me believe I can be better. And watching you with Leora, watching you build a life from nothing, yeah, I love you. So what do we do about it? I don't know. I'm bad at this. Relationships, connection. I failed once already. So did I, spectacularly. But maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe all that matters is we try. Together. Elias reached out, took her hand. Together. She leaned in, kissed him. Soft at first, then deeper. Years of loneliness and pain and survival meeting in that moment. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying. That was good, Mara said, laughing through tears. Yeah, it was. Want to do it again? Yeah, I do. Spring came late that year, but when it came with force. Snow melted, rivers swelled. The land turned green overnight. Mara planted her garden. Elias built a small barn for animals they'd acquire eventually. Leora celebrated her first birthday with a cake Mrs. Chen brought up from town. The world kept turning. The Vales stayed in prison. The town prospered without their shadow. And slowly, carefully, Elias and Mara built a life. Not perfect. They still argued, still had bad days, still woke up sometimes with nightmares about what had been. But they had good days too. More good than bad. Days where Leora took her first steps. Days where the garden produced more vegetables than they could eat. Days where they sat on the porch and watched the sunset and felt something that might have been peace. One evening, almost 2 years after that ridge, Mara said something that surprised them both. I want another baby. Elias looked at her. You sure? Yeah, Leora needs a sibling, and I want to do it right this time. Not in the snow, not alone, not in fear. I want to bring a child into the world surrounded by love. That's a big step. I know, but I'm ready. We're ready. Elias thought about it, about what it meant, about the commitment, the risk, the vulnerability. Okay. Yeah. Let's have another baby, build a bigger family, fill this house with noise and chaos and life. Mara grinned. You're going to regret saying that when there are 2 of them crying at 3 a.m. Probably. But I'll regret it with you. That makes it better. They did have another baby, a boy this time. They named him Samuel after Mara's father who died before she could know him properly. Leora was 3 by then, old enough to be curious about her baby brother, old enough to help, old enough to be a person with opinions and preferences and a fierce independence that both frustrated and delighted her parents. The house expanded, another bedroom, a larger kitchen, a workshop for Elias, the land produced. They grew food, raised chickens, traded with neighbors. They built a life. Not the life either of them expected, not the life they would have chosen before that ridge, but a good life, an honest life, a life built on choice and effort and love. Years passed. Leora started school in town. Samuel learned to walk, to talk, to get into everything. More children came. 3 in total. Each one a little different. Each one wanted, planned, loved. Elias never went back to the cabin, never felt the need. His isolation was gone, replaced by noise and chaos and family. Mara never looked over her shoulder anymore, stopped waiting for the next threat, learned to trust that safety was real. They grew old together, not gracefully. They argued about money, about parenting, about whose turn it was to deal with whatever crisis the kids had created. They had good years and hard years and everything in between, but they had them together. One evening, when Leora was 20 and visiting with her own baby, making them grandparents, which felt impossible, Mara and Elias sat on their porch watching the sunset. Do you ever think about it? Mara asked. That ridge? What would have happened if you'd ridden past? Sometimes. And I'm grateful I didn't. Grateful I stopped. Grateful for everything that came after, even the hard parts. Me too. Mara leaned against him. We built something good here. Against all odds, despite everything. We built something that matters. Yeah, we did. Think the kids understand what it took to get here? Maybe not yet. But they will. When they're older. when they face their own hard things. They'll understand. Inside, they could hear Leora talking to her baby, singing something soft, the same song Mara used to sing to her when she was small. The circle continuing, life moving forward. "I love you," Mara said. "I love you too." The sun set, the mountains turned purple, and somewhere in the distance, a hawk cried out. But it wasn't a sound of warning anymore, just life, continuing, persisting, mattering. Two broken people had found each other on a frozen ridge, had chosen to stand when they could have fallen, had built a life when survival seemed impossible. They hadn't been saved by each other, hadn't fixed each other, hadn't made everything perfect. They'd just stood together, fought together, lived together, and in the end, that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. The mountains didn't care about their story. The world kept turning regardless. But they cared. Their children cared. The life they built cared. And sometimes that's all that matters. Not that you were saved, not that you were fixed, just that you kept going, kept trying, kept choosing to build instead of destroy, kept choosing life over survival, love over fear, together over alone. That choice, made every day in small ways and large, was the real victory. Not the trial, not the justice, not the happy ending, just the daily decision to keep being human, keep being kind, keep mattering. Elias Boone and Mara Vale, now Boone, had made that choice. And in making it, they'd found something neither expected. Not perfection, not freedom from pain, just home. And that was worth everything.